school committee intends to conduct this meeting remotely. The public can participate in this meeting remotely, but not in person, by calling area code 301-715-8592. And the webinar ID is 923-6611-9836, or you can join us on the Zoom webcast by going to the Cumberland School Department website, and it's under the events for the calendar. You'll see the link to the Zoom program, and the passcode is 097431. Next is approval of the agenda. Item number A is compliance with Governor's Executive Order 20-63 dated August 7, 2020. Discussion/vote on whether there is public access to the meeting through adequate alternate means. Mr. Chandler, do you see anyone from the public?
I do.
You do, okay. So we have a couple. All right, great. So there is adequate access for the public. So I need a motion for the approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor? Aye. Is 2-0. Absent from this meeting currently is Ray Salvatore. Next is approval of minutes from 6/25/2020, July 16th, 2020, and August 6th, 2020. I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Bernardo. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, 2-0. Thank you. Next is payment of the bills. We have payment in the bills. We have two registers. The first one for calendar year 2019-2020, in the amount of $387,827.70. And the next register is for the 2021 school year in the amount of $1,771,243.42. Does anyone have any questions for Alex in regards to the register that you may have not reached out to him earlier? Okay, I don't see anyone have any questions for the register. So Jen, if you would approve the payment of the invoices for the 1920 year in the amount of, make the motion for $387,827.70.
Okay, motion to approve.
Motion to approve, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, 2-0. And the next one is 2021 school year in the amount of $1,771,243.42. Would you make that motion?
Yep, motion to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, 2-0. Thank you. All right, next is the payment of, I'm sorry, the business office monthly report. Alex? You here, Alex? Did you leave?
He looks frozen.
All right, let's give it a second for him to.
Can you hear me?
We can
Yes.
hear you now. Yes, we can. Alex, dial-up is long gone from AOL.
He's back again.
You're
Alex.
muted, Alex.
Looks like he's frozen.
Oh, okay.
Alex, you want the phone number?
Try to shut your video off if you have bad connection.
Yeah, just, and unmute yourself. There you go. No, you muted yourself again. There you go.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay. I would, Mr. DeMonic, I would suggest we go to item 8, if you don't mind, and take the two resolutions up and then come back to me so that we can make sure we take care of two important items that are on tonight.
That we can. So let's move down to item number 8, which is discussion and/or vote to approve resolution number A is SCPR 8 2020-13. It's a contract for inspection and assessment of school building ventilation systems. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, as you know, one of the things that we've been concerned about is making sure if we bring our students and staff back, that we do it as in a safer manner as possible. And one of the key areas of making sure that our people are safe is how much fresh air and ventilation we're getting into our classrooms and offices. So we've asked E&E, who we have a maintenance contract with and who's done much of this work for us, and probably Paul Murphy, who's on the Zoom here tonight, probably knows more about our ventilators than anyone that I know. And I asked him for a proposal on what it would take to go into our different schools and look and make sure that we are bringing in enough fresh air for the number of people that would be in the building. So Paul has given us a proposal here. And what I suggest is we let Paul explain to you what he would do. And he's got a couple of proposals there where we could go either way and
Okay.
explain each of the different proposals to you. So Paul, if you want to take us through the proposal, please.
Welcome, Mr. Murphy.
Oh, thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody. My name is Paul Murphy. I'm the Director of Energy Advisors at E&E Systems. Over the past few months, E&E has been getting numerous requests, either through our technicians or through our service mechanics, as to questions from school districts as to what to do and how should we approach it, and what are all these guidelines and what's important, what do our buildings look like. So because there was such a need, and I didn't want 25 different or 30 different guys telling school districts to do different things, we wrote a guidance document based on what ASHRAE had to say and what the school opening proposals from Massachusetts and Rhode Island said that should be done. So we try to kind of collate that into a common message, so that at least customers could read that and have an understanding of maybe how they might approach the ventilation portion. As we know, getting kids back to school and everything we read, it needs to be a multi-layered approach. HVAC only being one of those layers. Social distancing, cohorting, disinfecting, washing hands, face masks, all that stuff is really important. But your ventilation system is another cog in that wheel. And a lot of schools across the United States, not just in Mass and Rhode Island, their equipment's old and it's broken down. And, people don't drive 55 Chevys anymore, but we have 1955 ventilators running in schools. And you can replace parts, but that doesn't make them work for the long term. So we've done some renovation work in the school. In the two middle schools, we did two major renovations a few years ago where you have new univentilators. And the science at the time said we need to try to be as energy efficient as possible. So that's what we did. We put in new univentilators. We've upgraded some of your boilers. We put in new lighting. We've improved the building envelope. But now we're in a different scenario. It's almost like it's go backwards and do it upside down again, because we need to turn off demand control ventilation. We need to turn on the air systems and leave them on as long as we can. We need to make sure that the heating systems can keep up with that additional load. So with the variable nature of all these schools and the different ages of all the schools, it's hard to just give you one blanket answer as far as what is the magic bullet or what technology you need to use. So what we're doing with some of our customers, some of our service customers, is we're doing assessments. We're going through with an air balancing hood. We're measuring what mixed air you have coming from a univent, how much air is coming from the outside, how much air is being exhausted, and we're writing that down, and we're going to sit down and make recommendations to the customers as far as, is this enough? Does this create an unsafe hazard? Because we do know we have classrooms that just don't have ventilation in them. Older schools that had no mechanical ventilation, they're really up against a tough situation. Cumberland, you have all mechanical ventilation, some newer than others. So it really comes down to going through and trying to assess each school. And what we proposed is we would look at 25% of your classroom equipment, 100% of your nurses' equipment, and then making the assumption that your gym, your large congregating spaces, your gyms, your libraries, and your cafeterias wouldn't be used or would only be used minimally. So we just to get through assessing the schools. We would not assess those at this time. So I gave Alex a proposal. It's based on about 15 to 20 minutes for 2 guys to go into each classroom and take the measurements. We just started that this week for Sharon schools in Massachusetts. They have 5 schools. It's taken a little bit longer than what I estimated, but in the end, we need to get the data to provide the report. Researching some of the nurse ventilations. The ASHRAE guidance on reopening schools basically echoes what ASHRAE 170 says, is that medical facilities and nurses' offices and ante areas and dressing gowning areas need to be treated like medical facilities. They needed their dedicated outside air systems. Their exhaust needs to be exhausted in a certain way. It can't be near the intake equipment. Otherwise, you're just bringing contaminants back into the building. So it's those types of things that we're going around. We'll send 2 guys to a school with a balancing hood. They'll go up on the roof. They'll look at your exhaust fans. They'll look at your univentilators. They'll check out your systems, and then they're going to spend a little extra time in the nurse and any of those special areas that we identified in our guidance report. So for your proposal, back about 3-4 years ago, we started upgrading some of the old EMS systems, the old energy management systems, to our latest platform, and we added the 2 middle schools as well. So we have the 5 elementaries and the 2 middles on our EMS. So with that, we've been doing a little test program to try to figure out how we could do proactive maintenance using data analytics. And with that, we've got a lot of data on how Cumberland's equipment is operating. So it's just been running in the background, and we've been doing tests and trying to figure out how to best use this data. But if we were able to use that system, we could probably look at a lot more of your equipment faster. We would know what's not running and what is running just by going through and having some reports written different than the way they're written right now, and some programming done to pull the data and synthesize it. So the guys that go out to the field can actually go target places that they know aren't working for some reason or not. So this is what we're proposing. It's an assessment. I don't want to say it's commissioning because we're not going to every aspect of the building. We're looking at your ventilation system and your exhaust system. And we're trying to help you out, provide you a service so that you can feel at least you know where you're at. One of the other benefits of having that analytics package is anyone that's ever worked on HVAC equipment knows it fails, and it fails all the time. So with the analytics package, once we do the assessment and we checked everything and verified it, then we can do a monthly check to make sure at least what's available on the analytics reports, that your exhaust fans in this school in Ashton are still running, that the BF Norton's univentilators are running 2 hours early, 2 hours late. So we can verify that type of stuff going forward with those reports. So there are other additional benefits. I tried to put it in there to try to work the benefit and also get that in there for the next 11 months so that we can get used to using it and work with Cumberland to keep on top of the equipment. So does anybody have any questions about, did everyone see the proposal that I made and the guidance document?
I mean, I know I have. Has anyone else looked at it? I do have a couple of questions for you, Paul, if members don't have them yet. One is, and Bob, you probably need to chime in here as well, is that I know you mentioned the cafeterias and the libraries and stuff, that you wouldn't be doing those, assessing those areas, or even the gyms. But Bob, we have Alpha Best that comes in and uses the schools. And those are the kind of the areas that that Alpha Best uses. So would it not be beneficial to have them test those as well? Otherwise, we're kind of, defeating the purpose for that program as well, because it is our school children.
Well, to answer your question, I mean, I think that is a good point. I do think that the cafeterias, although they may not be utilized like, the high school, for example, 300 students in there at a time, the plan is still to utilize that space to some degree, respecting the guidelines that have been established. So I think your point is well taken. I think that we should consider doing those areas, and we may need to, like, for example, I'm glad you mentioned this because it just triggered this thought as well. We have also been talking about, and I think I've mentioned this before in a prior meeting, that the high school, may use the trans caf or the trans gym to accommodate some of the lunches, because we need to make sure that staff gets a lunch break. So,
Right.
so I think we should. I know that time is of the essence, and there's a lot of work to be done here in a short period of time. But I would personally feel more comfortable if we also
Test
consider.
those areas.
Yeah.
All right, so is it possible we can get Mr. Murphy a list of the schools that are used by Alpha Best in the areas, and that way we add them to this, that we're gonna do here, and we'll just have to figure out the payment for those extra
Yeah.
areas?
Well, I can tell you, all of the elementary schools, all 5, and the North Cumberland Middle School, they all use Alpha Best. So,
Okay, and
What is Alpha Best? I'm not familiar with that.
right,
program.
Alpha Best is a before and after school program for families that need childcare at the beginning of the day, childcare at the end of the day. It's a really popular program that, parents, even now under the circumstances, we have a lot of parents, or just as many parents, showing interest as they have in the past. So I think that's a good point.
all right, so can we add McCourt's cafeteria in there as well, just in case we end up using that? And so we do the 5 elementaries and the 2 middle school cafeterias?
Absolutely. I'll add that in.
All right, Paul, all right. So does anyone from the school committee have any questions? I see Mr. Collins, and then I'll go to Mrs. Freeman. Go ahead, Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. How long will it take to complete all 8 schools? You may have mentioned this, I may have missed it. I try to find a proposal.
So my critical path is I have 2 balancing hoods, but we're very busy using both of them right now. And I'm trying to buy a 3rd one. It's the strangest thing. You can't get a hold of things and buy things you used to be able to buy off the shelf. So I'm trying to get a 3rd one. If I can have the 2 in Cumberland, I could probably get it done in just, I could put 2 crews working at different locations, an engineer and a tech, or an engineer and a service mechanic. And probably it would take about a little over 2 weeks to get that done. It's probably 2 weeks in the schools, and then I have to give the engineers a day or 2 or 3 to write the report and collate all the information. And then Joe Davey, my mechanical PE, and myself will sit down with the guys that went through the inspections, and we'll work through what the recommendations space by space would be.
All right, because we're going to need this. The tentative start date of school right now is September 14th. So we'd have to have all this completed and assessed and make sure it's safe beforehand. So
Right. That's why I was looking at getting a 2nd crew, because I did the schedule earlier today, and we were out at the end of September with your 10. You basically have 10 buildings, the 3 buildings up at the high school and the other 7. So we would treat them all as individual buildings, and health and wellness may not take us that long. BF Norton may not take us that long, but the middle schools and the main building at the high school, that's going to take some time. And the high school has so many different types of systems. It's really going to slow us down. So we're going to try to get through the elementary schools as quick as possible, and then move on to the middle and the high schools. And hopefully we have our rhythm by then, and we can get through them fairly quickly too. So, but the high school's a big nugget, big place,
Okay, Mrs. Friedman?
I guess this is maybe a question for Mr. Mitchell or anyone, which is, so do we have a dependency on this assessment in terms of making our decision about whether we can bring kids back into the schools?
Well, my question, I mean, I think that is really important question that has to be answered, because my question was going to be based on this assessment by E&E, and if there are areas in buildings that don't meet at the very least the minimum standard, what do we do? So, you know, I'm not sure. I would imagine that, you know, we may be in a position where we may have to, at the very least, close some classrooms, and that's just sheer speculation. But given the age of some of these buildings, I don't think any of us would be surprised. But I think that is a question that we're going to really have to put our heads together and figure out.
Now, you know, I watched Dr. Fauci today, and he said if you open the windows and add some fans, that might be good enough. You know, what are we thinking?
So,
Well, go ahead, Paul.
so the issue you have here is we're not going to get through this in the next 2-3 months. And we're going to have rain, we're going to have snow, we're going to have cold. And I mean, you can operate, and engineers will accept operable windows as ventilation, but we all know throughout the whole school year, the windows are not open. A lot of the windows are painted shut. Some of them don't have screens. And, you know, wind and rain and noise and all that comes in. We can make the recommendation. There's certain things you can do to supplement it, like getting filtration packs that can do some additional filtration that may offset the need for outside air. But I know of a few classrooms in your district that probably shouldn't be classrooms because of the condition of the HVAC equipment. It's just they don't operate or don't have outside air, and that it just wouldn't be a good thing if you had people in there and an infection occurred in that room. The other thing that the guidelines talk about is putting in recirculation equipment. Fans could be dangerous in a school, and I know Dr. Fauci said that. But if you have people in a school, you have building pressures based on the wind and the outside that can either suck air in or out. If you have a fan and you have people in a building and you're blowing it around, you could be doing the same thing as pulling it into a recirculation fan in your HVAC system and spitting it out, 20, 30 feet away. So there is some concern that there will be transmission through the HVAC system and fans and turbulence.
So the assessment needs to be done, which is going to take time. And then even if we decide that some of the work needs to get done, that's going to take months. How are we going to determine whether we have any classrooms today that could have students in them in current state? I mean, can we do any of that? You know, like Mr. Murphy just said that there are some classrooms he knows couldn't. You know, they don't have outside windows maybe, or access to other air or whatever it might be. Do we have that assessment of each school, classroom by classroom, of the ones we know cannot be classrooms in current state, and then which ones? I don't know.
I
So
think
the
we
answer-
could.
Go ahead.
Well,
I
I
was
think we
just
could
gonna-
have that very quickly by just reaching out to all the school principals tomorrow and say, identify all the rooms that don't have windows for starters. And that way we could have an answer, you know, depending how quick they get it done. If they're all working tomorrow and not on vacation, and we make sure someone does it, I think we could have that answer, no later than Monday, for sure. And then we'll have to wait for Mr. Murphy to have his team do the assessments. Maybe we can, do the oldest school first, elementary school, and then, move to the, by the age of the building, get them done that way.
So would we be saying then that we are not going to have in-person learning until we complete this assessment?
Well, I would think it could rightfully be so, that we, unless we know what's going to happen with the ventilation, for each classroom that we need the answers. I agree 100%. And it have to be something that the school committee and the superintendent, I believe, has to, figure that one out and make that recommendation sooner than later for the parents. I mean, I think any parent out there would want to be assured that we are testing the school classrooms for the ventilation and coming up with a response, to how to fix it for the, for the time being and go from there. Actually, not even time being, it'll be at least a year or so, if not more, of how we do it. And then as we remodel the schools with the $83 million bond, Mr. Torado and Colliers will have to certainly take that into consideration, how we ventilate these classrooms as they remodel each school.
So we can't, or can we estimate which schools might be okay? Or what percentage of schools? It sounds like we're saying the high school is not okay no matter what. Sounds like that's a problem.
Well, I can tell you during the 2010 the 2010 project, that most of the univentilators, I believe at the high school, were changed out. Okay, and Mr. Murphy did the two, E&E supervised the replacement at the two middle schools. It's the elementary schools that haven't been done. The ventilators have been cleaned, and we have monitoring systems on them to make sure they're working in the winter so pipes don't freeze. But that work was put off as far as replacing univentilators because it was going to be part of the $83 million work that they
Right.
get in there and do all that stuff. I mean, I don't have an answer. I don't think Mr. Mitchell has an answer yet in regards to how to proceed going forward, but the sooner E&E can get in there and start doing these tests, the better we'll be off.
Because
So
if we
if I
have to
may,
wait until we,
Go ahead, Mr. Mitchell.
I was just going to say, I know there's no question that ventilation is a hot button issue right now.
Mm.
And, the last thing I want to do is sound defensive. I know that there are other districts that might not even be paying attention to this.
Mm.
So the good news is we're on top of it. And we, Alex and I have had many conversations about this and others. And we, in some of the conversations we've had with staff, this is an issue that has come up, and that's why we decided to do this. So we know, I got to believe after the work that's been done at both middle schools that we should be in pretty good shape there. And there may be areas in those buildings that, we need to pay some attention to, but, I really do think we need to get a handle on where we are. You approve this resolution, E&E can get moving on this
Yeah.
ASAP, and it'll give us some, and we have until August 31st, I guess, to start to think about what we're going to do. And you know what? Health and safety, remember, that is always our number one priority, and that will drive any decisions that we make. And I know I'm speaking to the, preaching to the choir here.
I
Anyone else?
mentioned a couple of things.
Go ahead, Alex.
I got a couple of things, Paul.
ahead.
A couple of things. One, the middle schools, like Bob just said, we're in pretty good shape with, except in some of the areas, we weren't able to change the univents because a couple of reasons. RIDE made the project much more costly by demanding and us to be able to put univents in that were quieter than the ones we had. We had univents that were completely broken. We had tried to just replace them, so we had a working univent, and they made us put in a different model that was added to that were quieter, and that was more expensive, and we weren't able to do everywhere. And the ones we didn't do were kind of those rooms like offices and stuff where only one or two people sit. And RIDE also doesn't reimburse you for those. They only reimburse you for classroom space. So if you had a univent when we did shape, but there will be rooms over there that are on. The other thing, I wanted to ask Paul a question because I'm getting a number of requests, and Will is, and he's coming to me with them, for window unit air conditioners to be put in because people clothing and, kids who have IEPs and all this sort of stuff that happens. And I've heard all sorts of things about window units not being really the best thing to use with this virus around. If you could comment a little what you think.
So window air conditioners are considered recirculation equipment. They don't bring in outside air for the most part. The ones you see with the hose that goes out, that's actually just getting rid of moist air, getting rid of some of the moisture. And the filtration systems in those units are not even considered MERV 3. So you are only capturing, large particles of dust, and therefore any viruses or anything could be distributed through an area with the fans recirculating. So part of the guidance is to not use recirculation equipment. So for that fact right there, splits and window ACs, I would say, are not going to do any benefit for this particular cause.
Okay, Mr. Mitchell?
One of the issues that has been not real clear in our superintendent's meetings, as I mentioned, this issue of ventilation has come up in our most recent meetings, and there is definitely some mixed messages, and so there's not real clarity on whether air conditioners and fans should be used or whether they should not be used. Now, based on what Paul Murphy just said, who does this for a living, I think based on his experience and work and the science behind all of this, that it might not be a good idea to do those things. But we heard, I'm telling you, in our meeting on Tuesday, the superintendent's meeting, the Department of Education rep who was in the meeting said that fans and air conditioners are okay to put in classrooms if they're not directly blowing on anybody. That's what we heard. And RIDE actually had a mechanical engineer from some college in Massachusetts. They hired someone to do a webinar to provide guidance to facilities managers on this very issue. And what they heard in this webinar and what was reported by RIDE was inconsistent. So what they heard was you really shouldn't have air conditioners and fans in classrooms. And then RIDE, and they hired the guy, RIDE was saying that you can have them. So this is a problem, right? This is a part of the problem. We're not getting, and this is just one issue. And I'm not, we're all in a difficult spot here. But the point is that we're getting inconsistent guidance on this. So, I think, we need to rely on the experts who do this for a living to help us do the right thing. But it's an important decision.
Right.
Who would disagree with
But
that?
if we have elementary school classrooms where the windows can be open, is that enough to bridge the gap between, the start of school and when we can address if there are any major issues with ventilation?
I think that's the question, right? That has to be answered. We actually heard, and just to take it a step further, in the meeting on Tuesday, talking about fans, we heard there should be one fan blowing in and one fan blowing out. So you should have two fans. Now, I have no idea, how much of an impact that has, but that's what was reported in the meeting.
Mr. Fiorillo?
Thank you. I have a question for Paul Murphy. Hi, Paul. My experience is that An open window does not constitute ventilation because the air is not really moving in a proper ventilating way, if you will. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the assumption is made that you open a window, air is always coming in. It really has to do with the outside and inside differential pressure. It comes in or goes out. So it's been long accepted in older schools that operable windows provides ventilation. But like we said earlier, windows aren't always open. When it rains, they close. When it gets cold, they close. Some are painted shut, and they don't have screens. It increases noise. So I have kind of asked my folks not to rely just on operable windows, but certainly for a short term, if you had acceptable weather and you could open the windows, that's certainly a benefit, but it's not a perfect solution by any means.
But it could potentially be something, maybe that's what we'd have to evaluate. And that is what everyone heard when, they listened to Dr. Fauci and the governor today.
Right. I heard that as well. As I said last week, that, when Mr. Adams gave us some legal advice, we're going to vote what's best for Cumberland and only Cumberland. And, if we have to ignore Ride or the governor's recommendation because it doesn't work for Cumberland, then so be it. And we'll, take the wrath like Warwick did the other day. But, let's get through this resolution. Let's get this approved if we're going to approve it. And then E&E can go to work and we'll figure it out and come up with, all these questions are valid questions that we need to answer before we send our children back to the buildings, that's for sure. And if anyone else has a question for the Mr. Murphy from E&E?
Mr. Chairman, Paul, I missed the beginning of the meeting. When was it stated that you'd be able to start and then complete this work?
So I'll be finishing Cumberland site work, not Cumberland, Sharon site work a week from tomorrow. So there's a possibility I could probably start earlier, but as I said before, I'm having trouble getting my hands on another balancing hood to measure airflow. I have two of them. To be honest, I've used them 3 times a year at best for the last 5-6 years. And now all of a sudden I need 3 or 4 of them. I gotta try to source another one somewhere. And if I can get another one, I can get people from the service group and an engineer to accompany that person so we can go around and do the checks and collect the data we need so we can get a report on this. But you got 10 buildings, and I'm trying. It's probably 2 weeks worth of site work to get through all 10 buildings. We can try to compress that, but again, I'm limited. I don't want to send guys around just putting their hands on top of the ventilator. What I would like to be able to do is to measure your outside air intake off your univentilator, measure your mixed air coming out of your univentilator, and measure your exhaust, so we know where we stand as far as what your outside air, mixed air percentages, at least when the buildings are unoccupied. So, and then, we know that the classrooms in the middle school should be in pretty decent shape. I don't know the condition of the high school. It's the building I've spent the least amount of time in. So I kind of set aside a few extra days for that. But if I can get 2 univentilators down there, 2 balancing hoods down there with 4 guys, then it'll go a lot quicker. But I'm right now, I don't have the equipment I need to do it.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, hearing none. So we have a resolution empowering the Cumberland School Committee to authorize a contract to E&E Systems of Canton, Mass. To inspect and assess ventilation system throughout the district as a health and safety issue in the amount not to exceed $40,000. The funding for this will come out of the COVID-19 relief funds. So I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mrs. Bernardo to approve, seconded by Mr. DeMonico. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it 2-0 with Mr. Salvatore absent. Thank you, everyone, and there's something we're gonna have to wrap our hands around on that one. Okay, next is a resolution.
Paul, thanks for your quick response on this.
Oh,
All right,
Thank you,
thank you, everybody. I'll get back to you with the schedule.
Nice to see you, Paul. Thank you.
All right, thanks, same to you.
All right, next is SCPR 2020-14. Resolution authorizing and empowering the Cumberland School Committee to execute a lease purchase from Connecticut Business Solutions of Warwick, Mass. For 11 copiers in an amount not to exceed $319,586, and the said cost is included in the fiscal year 21 budget. Mr. Brignano.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Currently, we have under lease purchase about 16 months left on a lease for various pieces of equipment similar to what we're buying. These are newer models and that sort of stuff, but we have 16 months left on those payments, and the payment is $57.45 a month. What we've been offered, because, well, Mike has been talking with CBS because of the need to upgrade equipment that, in many cases has 2-3 million copies on them, to upgrade equipment. And we've gotten a proposal from them for 11 pieces of equipment. They actually gave us two proposals, a 48-month lease and a 60-month lease that would include 2 other pieces of equipment. So the 60-month lease would be 11 new machines, the 48-month, 9 new machines. But what they're willing to do is, if we enter into this new lease, the payment would drop from the 57 change I just mentioned to 53.26, or $418.56 a month savings. They would also waive the remaining 16 months of the current lease that we have. So almost a year and a half of payments we wouldn't have to make, and we would, that year and a half would be those payments equipment. The other thing they've done is they've taken our maintenance down. We pay 0.0035 cents per copy for maintenance. That's included in that lease amount. And only if we exceeded 6.6 million copies would we pay, that 0.0035 on copies that we run above that. Mike, I don't know if you can address anything about, because you kind of handle this and work with CBS on a regular basis on the maintenance and what goes on. If you, any comments you might want to make, but that's basically the financial implications of the deal.
Yeah, so the copiers that we're looking to replace are a batch from 2017 when we had done some other replacements. We know that the number of copiers that we have in the district, with so many of them, with service calls all the time, just because they're 3 generations old at this point, and we've been trying to stagger them in, doing a certain number every few years. So this brings us back around to getting rid of some of our oldest devices and getting some devices that the teachers and building leaders can use that are reliable and don't have constant service calls.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Alex or Mike in regards to this resolution?
So the money for the new,
Cutting out, Alex.
Coventry, all kinds of issues.
Hello, Alex.
We lost you.
Well, I'll ask Mike Chandler a question.
I'm
Mike,
here.
Oh, there you are.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Alex.
who you talking to, Paul?
You.
Okay. The money for this first year of payments that in the upcoming budget we have will be made with the proceeds we have in the budget already for the old lease. So we have the $5,700 per month in the budget already that we would pay towards 12 of the remaining 16 months. So this would, the $5,300 that we're going to pay on this new lease would, $5,326 would be come from that. Those funds.
So we keep on losing
So-
Alex. Go ahead.
We, you know, we have,
Type it in the chat.
No. Dial-up is dead, Alex.
we have the money
Right.
appropriated for this year.
All right, so the money's appropriate for this year. Mike, I have a question for you since we can't get through to Alex.
Yep.
And that is the previous equipment, if I'm correct, we would buy it out at the end. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, so that's what we've done with the last batches of the equipment where we do own it. We have the option to keep it or get rid of it.
Right.
If we did keep it, what we've done, we've used them in the past for just fill in things. If something had to go away, it's already reconfigured for ourselves. We have the ability to do that. One of the things that you don't have the ability to do though is basically it becomes a standalone unit or only a printer that we'd allow to be used in certain areas if
Right.
another device wasn't come offline, because we don't have licensing, because we transfer the licenses to the new machines for our monitoring system.
Okay, so I mean, if we go through with this, how many machines from the 2017 are we keeping, if any? None?
So there's a couple of them in question that we could use just because of a couple that we have in areas of high maintenance and in times of need. We can put them in place. We can use them
Right.
when like different registration processes, some registration things that go on at the high school, use them just as a sole copier and things like that. So the ones that have been in better condition out of the last batch of them, I mean, when you're looking at the numbers of 5 million copies on them in the service calls, I mean, they've well exceeded their life, because what we've been doing over the years as we haven't been replacing, we'll take them from one building to the other to see what the copy counts are. So if they're being used less in one specific area, we can get some more life in a high area. We move the high life one back to the area that has a lower count so that we can get a little extra life in the areas that are seeing more use.
Okay,
And I mean, frankly, we're running out of room anyways in buildings too, because we kept some of the old ones that we left out there because there was a different licensing transfer on some of the really old ones. So we kept
Right.
those with the new licensing pack, so we're able to use some of them, but we're just running out of space that we can put things in buildings as well.
okay. Anyone have any questions for Alex or Mike Chandler in regards to this? Okay, I don't see anyone raising their hand or anything, so I need a motion to approve SCPR 8 2020-14 in an amount not to exceed $319,586,000.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mrs. Bernardo, second by Mr. DeMonico. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it 2-0 with Mr. Salvatore absent from the meeting. All right, Alex, if we can hear you, we'd like to.
Yeah, I
go
think this works a little better for me if you can hear me through the phone.
back-
That
Okay,
does
then,
work, Alex.
much better. So let's go back to the business office monthly reports.
Right, I'd like to, and if you recall last week, Mrs. Friedman asked, we were talking about a number of things that we were looking at to try to open schools in a few weeks. And she commented about, gee, have we taken a look at the budget side of this and what does it all mean? So I put a little sheet together based on what I think we are right now. And, you know, it wouldn't take me a couple of minutes to run through this, just so people have an idea of some of the things that we have to do and, you know, with the budget, whether it was COVID related or not, and some of the
Okay.
COVID related items. So does everyone have the budget adjustment sheet?
Which one?
It
That
says
says,
budget adjustments, FY21, full return.
okay, full
At the top.
return. Okay, so I do
So
have a
if-
copy. I know Alex put them in the drive earlier this afternoon. Has anyone had a chance to get them? Okay,
you
Alex, go ahead.
Emailed them out.
Yeah,
Okay,
I emailed them and plus Cindy put them in the drive. So anyhow, if you look at the 73,202,777 at the top of the page, that's our budget that the town council just passed.
Mhm.
Things that are going to affect the revenue side of the budget. The first one is state aid. We don't know what's going to happen there. I just have that as a question mark right now. ESSA funds, we're going to get $512,000 of proceeds, actually 530,000, but we have to give 18 to Mercy Mount as private schools. We have to share it like we would Title I dollars. And so that $512,000 is basically replacing the $530,000 that they did not pay us last year in state aid. So that money will go back to last year. What we'll do is we'll reduce expenditures that we had last year. It will increase our surplus last year, and we'll roll that money into 21 so that we get the benefit of it in 21. So there's $512,000. The next item is the copay. I think that's on your agenda tonight, or to talk about ICSI's contract extension. One of the things that we were doing is we were going to hold their healthcare rate the same as last year, and the number somewhere between $20,000 and $25,000 by having them stay with the same working rate in their healthcare. It would have went up about $9 a pay period for family and $4 for individual. I decreased rentals and preschool revenues only because with the COVID out there, we're not able to rent our pool the same way. We're not able to do rentals. There are not as many groups coming in for basketball tournaments and other things that we've rented for the past, and I take the revenue down somewhat with that in mind. Same with the preschool. We've got to really now that we're getting close to school, see just how many kids that would be paying for the preschool are coming and have enrolled. The pathways, $20,000. In talking with the high school people, they had 10 when we put the budget together. They have still a bunch of people that are interested in coming, but only 2 of those have so far enrolled. So I've increased the budget a little bit for those. On the appropriation side, and none of this is COVID related pretty much except for the decrease in rentals and above, the appropriations, the G6 employees have taken a salary freeze, a deferment on their salary, $77,000 of savings. We didn't lay off anyone in the summer pretty much. The school committee decided not to lay off music and people, art, et cetera, that the superintendent had recommended at the time. So we did not have, we can reduce that unemployment budget because we weren't paying people during the summer months unemployment. Voc tuitions, a $22,000 savings based on what the actual number is going to be and the kids that we know that are going there next year. Special ed tuitions, we were increasing by $150,000. I've talked with Rachel. She thinks we could take 100 of that back. Health claims, we all are going to a new healthcare system where we don't gamble on what our claims are going to be anymore. We have a set working rate. It's kind of a hybrid plan. It's a self-insured plan, but you pay a working rate into the WB community right along. And if you have a good experience, you get to keep the money rather than with a Blue Cross who would just, you would make the payment to them and it would be their profit. So the working rate that we have to get to is $240,000 more than we had budgeted. We have to put that in. We had a reading teacher at Ashton that was in Title I funding. Ashton's no longer a Title I school, so we have to move that person to the general fund. The charter school tuitions were up $18 a student from our original estimates. That adds $10,700 to the budget. The trust insurance went up 9.1, not 7%, and workers' comp premium went up a little bit. So all in all, with all that going on, we'd be $311,000 to the good. Down below that, the COVID relief fund money, there's 2 pots to that. There's ESSA money that replaced the state aid last year and has less restrictions in how you use it. And there's the COVID relief fund money, which is highly restricted, has to be spent by December 30th. And whatever you spend it on, you have to appropriate in the budget yourself from January to June. So what we're trying to do is spend it on items that would be one-time expenses that we wouldn't have to buy again between January and June. If you use it for a salary, you'd get 4 months of salary for someone, but you'd have to pick up the 6 months of that salary in the second half of the year. So we'll see some of the things as we go through this that we're putting the COVID money on. But that 636,001 is going to be a positive number of help to the budget. Down below, this is the virtual academy that Rachel and Tony DeMona have been working on with Ingenuity and IXL, so that students who choose to stay, not return, will have can go attend school virtually, and that cost is $136. The next item, there's apps, et cetera, that the IT department knows we're going to need, that people were using last March and April when students were home. I got that 146 to the right. That's the number that they would like. I put a number in at $100,000 right now. We'll see what, I wouldn't imagine we would have to buy every app that people were using. So that needs to be looked at. And there'll be somewhere between that 100 and 146,000, I would imagine. The TA salaries, the new calendar would have added an additional $33,000 of salaries to TAs because it added additional days. We're going to have to, because TAs, if they attend professional development, get paid. So those PD days would have added that 33,000. We will have to not allow them to attend those PD days to save that money. If we have them attend, you'd have to add 33,000 to the budget. Cleaning supplies, I put it, there's 301,000 there. I've spent 50,000 so far this year, and I would try to push that into the COVID relief fund, that 636 up above. The goal is to find $636,000 of one-time expenses that we'll spend between now and December. Also, our Chromebooks that we have in the budget. What you have to do is look back at what your average expense has been the last 3 years. We did that. The average expense has been about 200 and something thousand, about 225,000 a year we've been spending on Chromebooks. Next year we're looking to spend $600,000+. I have to take that average of two change and subtract it from that, and that's the only amount I can use for COVID relief. It can't be that if every year you were spending 200,000, the 200,000 you would have normally had in your budget, you can put into that fund. So I come up with about $385,000 there. Technology, we have a couple of issues there. One is the high school security project, which we talked about last week, has come in higher. So the mayor's master lease he's doing for us, we're going to need more money towards the security project, which means less money for Chromebooks. And we're going to have to put money into the budget for technology to get everything that we feel we need, about $117,000. Also, we think, especially if we go virtual, that to have a real vibrant virtual program, you can't have Chromebooks break and it takes days to get them back to students. So we feel, and Mike can talk about this a little bit, he's on, obviously, he could talk about this, but we're talking about possibly adding an additional position for technology. And we would try to push that into the COVID relief fund. That would bring us to a negative $151,000 at that point in the budget. You go to the next page.
But Alex, I thought you said, you shouldn't use the COVID relief funds for positions.
Right, but I'm not going to be able to find 636. I'm trying to. If I can find something else, I won't. But at this point, I would put that in there, and if something else comes up, for example, one of the things I didn't have on here is Paul Murphy's study. That would be a perfect COVID relief fund number because it's $40,000. It's one time. We won't have to spend that money again and budget it in the second half of the year.
Or if there were other creative things we wanted to do, like right. Throwing it out there, like rent a tent so you could have lunch outside or do some outdoor spaces or things like that could be part of that fund.
Well, not rent a tent because you would have to have the rental payment the second half of the year, but buy a tent. If you bought a tent, it'd be a one-time purchase. But yeah, this is a best estimate of where I think we are right now,
Okay.
All right, hold on, Alex, 1 second. Mr. Collins had a question.
Okay,
No,
and I'm sorry because I don't see. I'm on phone and I don't see people. So Paul, if you can do that for me, that's
Mr. Collins is all set.
I just,
okay.
This is Bernardo.
Go ahead. Hold on, Alex. Go ahead.
just very quickly about the possible technology position. Are you also thinking that that might be a temporary position based on like a, immediate need that would go away potentially? Is that why you put that under
Um,
the COVID relief fund as well?
no, I wasn't thinking that. It could be, but it's
So-
just I'm putting it there more to highlight that if we're going to really have a good virtual program, we're going to need, with the number of Chromebooks we have out there, we're going to need probably more than 2 people to. Now we could try not putting that position on, but
I mean,
and I'm not sure that would be the wisest thing to do. I think we need to, if we're virtual, I think we need to make sure Chromebooks, we're able to repair them quickly.
Mrs. Benado, I think the last tech person that we had that left to work for the public relations firm we had, I don't think we ever replaced them, if I'm correct.
No, we did.
We
Well,
did?
we got 2 people. We got 2 people.
Okay, all right.
We
Mrs.
got,
Friedman?
we got Jamie, who you people know, and Arthur, but, let me finish this, and then if you want to talk about that, Mike can
Well,
comment on it.
Mrs. Friedman had a question.
yeah, I guess I would just say that if we were considering using this money for positions, I think we need to look at that holistically about positions that we may need. There's, we have positions that we cut that are also important positions. I think we really would need to do some work on that and not just focus on this technology position, but that's.
Okay.
Well,
All right.
that would be your decision. I would differ that. I think that technology, keeping the virtual program up and running and vibrant, would be more important. But that would be a decision for the committee.
And I think guidance counselors for mental health are also important too.
Right.
But okay.
All right,
and they
Alex, let's move to
The variance, the variance program, the variance at the top now is $151,000 shortfall. The COVID relief fund expenses, which I don't know what that other 141,000 will be. If you add the COVID relief fund numbers on the front, I've got the full 636 of revenue in. I have in expenditures that are 141,000 short of that. So there would be some other expenditures we'd have to add to the budget that we will add to the budget to get us the full 636. So there's principals have asked for a number of things, from signage to all sorts of things that we will buy, and we've had them buying that. Some of it will shake out in here. I don't know exactly what that will all be yet. We're adding a new SPED program, and this is why we were able to bring the tuitions down by $100,000. The teacher for the program we're going to be able to put in the grant, we believe, and Rachel would need a couple of $1,000. That's all for the program. The 5 remaining kindergarten TAs, and this is just what I'm thinking, with kindergarten being so hard to keep kids separate and all that type of stuff, the 5 that we haven't brought back, it might be worth talking about bringing them back so that we can make sure that if those kids come back, that there are adults in the room to try to keep them safe. The workshare program that we did, where we laid off several of our building secretaries, we saved about $36,000. Cleaning, and this was Bob and I talked about this. We laid off 8 TAs. Maybe we could bring those TAs back and have them just do cleaning. They wouldn't be custodians. They would just help teachers clean during the day. And then I added 4 to that for about $390,000. I think you would need at least 4 at the high school, and maybe those other 8 could spread out in the other schools. The item under that is substitutes. We were thinking that we would want to try to hire 16 permanent subs so that our subs weren't working all throughout the state and coming, and that way, if we gave them employment every day in Cumberland, they would just be exposed in our school and not everywhere else. And at 16 of them at $150 a day, which would be an increase up from the 100 we pay now, times 180 days gives you the 432. You would also have to give them health care. So I just put in a working rate for 16 single plans. I don't know if that's what they would be. Food service wouldn't be affected if we came back full time, because we would we'd be serving lunches. It gets negatively affected in a hybrid program because you have the exact same cost for labor, et cetera, but you're only serving at best half the meals. And then busing, I don't know where we're gonna be yet with busing. Depending on what we do, we could have small savings. If we have to go to 22 kids on a bus, I think the numbers that Durham has been working with us is 40 people on a bus, which we may be too many. I have nothing in there at this point. I'm unsure of busing. That brings it to $1,263,000 short at this point. And then I look at down below the teacher raise for $656. And then also, and near busing, you see I have 36 virtual days up above $550. That $550, if we went one day, 36 days of virtual learning with, like, if every Monday was virtual in Cumberland, or Friday or some day, you would save about $550,000 in busing. And we need something big like that to kind of eat into that $1,263,000. And that gets you in the ballpark around $57,000. And then below that, I don't know what the virtual academy will be. I think we are surveying now to find out how many children might want to be in the virtual academy compared to returning to school. And that will, depending on those numbers, that will determine whether we have to hire teachers, additional staff, or what. Don't know. Could be expensive. Hopefully it will be a wash, that there'll be enough kids that want to do virtual that we can use existing teachers. The state aid, the big unknown, we're not going to know anything on that for a while. And then, busing, once again, I mentioned. And then if you had to, you could look at maybe, if you did virtual days, you could look to reduce staff on those virtual days. It would be non-CTA, obviously, because the time has passed on them. And with, you could probably generate, from the numbers I added up today, with them collecting on that, for that time, about $300,000. So those are some of the things where I think, that, gives you a little bit of an idea of what the budget, some of the things we will have to do to the budget. I've also given you some other pages there on the technology that I don't know. I know you're supposed to be an executive session. We could talk about later. And then on the cleaning supplies, gee, I think the one I sent out dropped a column. I think you just have the dollar amounts and a calculation to the left of the items that, that we've either bought so far or think we'll have to buy. And I will send that out again tomorrow with those items so you can get an idea of what we're doing on the cleaning side. Not to read through all those items at this particular time. Any questions for me, or anything you want me to further elaborate on?
Anyone have any questions? Okay, Alex.
And I'll keep this updated as we do things and as we learn stuff, but we will have to make some decisions on whether we're going to have virtual days or whatever. And then I gave you a second sheet that was for if we went hybrid, and it was almost the exact same thing, except that we save on cleaning and we take about a $250,000 hit in our food service account, which has about a $480,000 positive fund balance right now. So that would wipe out more than half of the fund balance in that food service account, which can only be used on in the food service program. But other than that, the numbers are very similar.
Right, Alex, just one question for you, one thing for you, as you keep a running total for these budget adjustment sheets, if you would date them for us, please. So
No
that
problem.
school committee members know which ones they got.
Yeah.
For the, for their files, so we can just,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I'll put the date on that. When I save them by the date, so I have that, and but I'll also put it on the document so you guys know also.
All right, so do you have anything else for the business office monthly report?
Nope. I just wanted
Okay,
to. I thought Karen's question last week was important, and I wanted to at least quickly take people through some of the things we're seeing and what the potential cost of them might.
All right, anything for Desco Food Services?
Nope.
Shauna, okay, and I guess, well, her reports, I guess, will be based on how we come back to school, how that's gonna work. Anything for Sedesco facilities that we need to know about?
No, neither one tonight. There was a Sodexo food service seminar with Ride talking about the many different waivers and rules that will be in place coming in the new school year. And
Okay.
Shauna, Kristen, her boss, Kathy in my office, and myself participated in it. And you know, we're working on those type of things now, but you know, I won't
Okay.
report out on that tonight.
All right, next is activity reports, which we normally file. There's public comment is next. If anyone from the public would like to address the Fiscal Finance Subcommittee, please make yourself known to Mr. Chandler by waving or pressing *9, or I'm not sure. So that if you had a question, we could see if we can answer it for you. And as always, the school committee has a 3-minute time limit, and I need your name and address for the record, please. So, Mr. Chandler, do you see anyone out there that would like to address the Fiscal Finance Subcommittee?
There are a number of members, but nobody has their hand up or unmuted themselves at this time. If they'd
Okay.
like to, they can just use *9 to raise their hand or *6 to unmute themselves.
All right, we'll give it 1 second here, a couple seconds, and then if done, we'll go to adjournment. Okay, I don't see Mr. Chandler saying we have someone, so I need a motion to adjourn at this time.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned by Mrs. Bernardo, second by Mr. DeMonico. All in favor?
Aye.
Ayes have it, 2-0. Thank you, everyone. We go to executive session. I'll give you a minute or so, and then we'll go back into executive session, okay? Thank you.